Andrew Johnson was 26, full of quiet ambition and trying to find his place in a world that often felt 2 steps ahead of him. By day, he worked as a junior consultant for a tech firm in the city. By night, he was trying to build something real with Maya, a girl he'd met at a gallery opening. She was 26 too, spirited, smart, mysterious in a way that made her all the more magnetic. They had been dating for 8 months, and in that time, Maya's apartment became their escape. Andrew never questioned how she could afford such place on her erratic freelance income. All he knew was that being there with her felt like a pause button on life. That night started like many others. Wine, music, laughter in between kisses. Maya wore his shirt and nothing else. He was entirely bare. The city outside hummed as they lay tangled on the couch. It was the kind of night where nothing else was supposed to exist. Until the knock. 3 times. Slow and deliberate. Maya jolted upright. Andrew blinked. "You expecting someone?" "Number no one knows I'm here." Then the voice came, muffled but clear. "Maya, it's me. Open up." Andrew sat up straight. That voice, it punched through him like ice water. "That's my father," he said, disbelief coating each word. Maya turned sharply. "What?" He whispered, "That's my dad's voice, Larry Johnson." Her face drained of color. "You need to go, now." "Hold on. Why is my father at your door?" She shook her head frantically. "I can explain later, but if he sees you here, everything is ruined." "Ruined for who, Maya?" She was already dragging him off the couch. "Please, Andrew, please, just trust me." There was desperation in her voice. He hesitated, but then came another knock, louder, firmer. Andrew panicked, naked, confused, his mind spiraling. He climbed onto the windowsill. One look back at Maya, who mouthed, "Go," and he dropped into the darkness. The landing was brutal. He hit the dirt in the garden of the compound next door, scraping his arms and hip. He rolled and lay there for a moment, gasping. Then he scrambled to his feet, heart hammering. He was completely naked, cuts on his side, dirt on his legs, breath uneven. A street lamp flickered nearby, casting long shadows. He crouched, trying to stay hidden. A soft voice interrupted the quiet. "Mommy, there's a man in the flowers." Andrew turned. A child, maybe 3 years old, stood on a porch, pointing. I need help," Andrew said, trembling. "Can you get your mom?" The screen door creaked open. A young white woman stepped out. Her eyes landed on Daniel, bleeding, naked, frantic. She screamed, "Wait!" Andrew stepped back, hands raised. "Please, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I just need something to wear. Please, just clothes." But she grabbed her son and ran inside, slamming the door. Seconds later, red and blue lights painted the sky. They took him down hard, 2 officers yelling, cuffing him, not letting him speak. Andrew's arraignment came fast. The charges: attempted assault of a minor, trespassing, indecent exposure. The police report painted him as a deranged intruder. Nicole, the mother, was shaken, emotional. Her son had been frightened. The call recording didn't lie. She had said rape. Andrew tried to explain. He told the court everything. The night with Maya, the knock, the escape through the window. But his story sounded absurd. His public defender couldn't get Maya or Larry Johnson to respond to subpoenas. They were unreachable, uninvolved, like he didn't exist. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Inside, the days were grey and endless. Time crawled. Andrew tried not to think about Maya or his father, but every night, the memory of that knock echoed in his head. Why was Larry there? What was Maya hiding? Why had neither of them spoken a single word in his defense? 3 years into his sentence, Andrew overheard something that changed everything. A former college classmate, doing time for embezzlement, was talking about Larry Johnson in the prison yard. "You know, he used to sponsor this girl. Real pretty thing. Said she was his charity case. But we all knew." Andrew's stomach turned. What was her name? Maya, I think. Rented her a place near Midtown. The world tilted. After his release, Andrew wasted no time. He tracked down Maya's new address in a different part of the city. He stood outside her door, rehearsing what he'd say, what he'd ask, how he wouldn't yell. She opened the door and froze. You're out?" He stepped forward. 5 years, Maya. 5 years because you pushed me out that window." Her jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be here. You knew what would happen if I jumped, and you let it."
She didn't deny it.
"Were you sleeping with my father? Get out of my face." "You were. That's why he was there. You were seeing him the whole time." "You were never anything serious, Andrew," she snapped. "You were convenient. Nothing more. I owed you nothing." He left, shaking, but more determined than ever. He went to confront Larry next. His father sat behind a glass desk in a luxury office, dressed like nothing had ever gone wrong. "You disgraced yourself," Larry said, cold. "Don't try to blame others. I lost 5 years. Maybe that was the wake-up call you needed." Andrew clenched his fists. "You let your own son go to prison. And for what? For her? She's none of your concern." But Andrew had a new lead. He found the woman from that night, Nicole, and knocked on her door with shaking hands. She answered with guarded eyes, but when he said his name, her shoulders fell. "I thought about you every day for years," she said quietly. "I didn't know what to do." Andrew told her everything. Her eyes welled up as he spoke. "My son, he never forgot. He always asked about you, said you looked scared, not angry. I panicked. But you saw it. You saw I didn't try to hurt anyone." "I did. I called too fast. I wasn't thinking." She agreed to help, to tell the truth, to testify. Daniel filed a civil lawsuit against both Larry and Maya for emotional damages, malicious concealment, and negligence that contributed to his wrongful incarceration. Courtroom B of the state's civil court held a quiet tension the day the trial began. The press had caught wind of the story. A successful businessman accused by his own son of orchestrating a betrayal. Nicole took the stand first. She told her story clearly and bravely, how she saw a scared young man in her garden, how she mistook fear for danger, and how she knew now, with certainty, that Andrew had never posed a threat. Then came the evidence. Text messages between Maya and Larry, extracted from old backups. Flirty, coordinated. One dated the very night Andrew was arrested. "You said you'd handle it. If he finds out, it's over." The courtroom shifted. Maya's testimony crumbled under cross-examination. She had lied, she admitted, about Andrew, about her relationship with Larry. She didn't think it would spiral the way it had. Larry remained composed until he was forced to answer for why he never came to his son's defense. "He was chasing after something that didn't belong to him," Henry said coldly. The judge didn't flinch. "This case is not about a father's disapproval or a failed relationship," she said during the ruling. "It is about negligence silence, and the deliberate concealment of truth. Andrew was awarded $20,000 in damages, a fraction of what he lost, but far more than money. He walked out of the courthouse that day with his name cleared, his truth heard, and his dignity intact. Maya disappeared from the city weeks later. Larry, his reputation took a quiet nosedive. Some of his corporate partners distanced themselves. Whispers followed him now of betrayal, of silence, of a son thrown to the wolves. Andrew didn't look back. He used part of the compensation to rent a small, peaceful apartment on the city's edge. Quiet streets, a view of the river, and just enough space for books, coffee, and peace. But more importantly, he used the rest of the money to start a small non-profit, Second Window, a community initiative to support and mentor ex-convicts re-entering society after wrongful convictions. He knew what it meant to feel alone in the system, and he was determined to make sure others wouldn't feel that way again. Nicole, the woman who had once misjudged him, became one of Andrew's closest allies. Her steady presence and quiet strength brought balance to the office. She was practical, compassionate, and deeply committed to the mission of Second Window. One afternoon, she brought in a drawing from her son for the non-profit's launch. Andrew, in a bright red cape, standing on a rooftop, smiling under a big yellow sun. It found a permanent spot on the office wall, a quiet reminder of how far he'd come. "I told you he wasn't scary," the boy said proudly. Daniel laughed, real and deep. And then one day, unexpectedly, love returned. Her name was Jenny. A fellow advocate, she came in to speak at one of Second Window's forums. She had a calm spirit, a quiet fire in her, and eyes that didn't look at him with pity, but with admiration. Their connection was slow and sincere, rooted not in drama, but in healing. One late afternoon, as the sun poured through the windows of his little office, Jenny leaned on the desk beside him, reading over a grant proposal. "You ever think that maybe everything that happened led you here?" she asked softly. He looked at her, then out the window that didn't lead to fear or running anymore, but to clarity, to purpose. "Sometimes," he said, "I do." She smiled, took his hand, and gave it a small squeeze. He squeezed back. Andrew Johnson had lost 5 years, but in their place, he found something else. A cause, a community, a second chance at love, and the quiet, steady dignity of a man who'd stood through the storm and stepped forward anyway. And this time, when he moved forward, it wasn't through the window. It was through the front door, head high, heart open, and future wide. And through that truth, a kind of freedom even the system couldn't take away.